self-explanatory. What you want to do is grab your client file and just key in whatever the software asks you to key in. If it is you're missing something, you call the home office. And without getting too deep, what we're looking to key in is things like owner, annuitant, beneficiaries, issuing company info, values, account values, issue date, and some of the details regarding the asset itself. Now, how long this takes is all dependent upon several factors. First, would be how many assets you've actually set up for your client. And second would be the number of times you've actually run the software. And again, this is easy stuff, but of course, reputation makes for speed. And third, whether this is the first time you're actually building the client records keeping system for your client, or whether you're now in year 2 or 3 or 4 where you're just updating the client records keeping system. So let's say that you're keying in 4 assets for a particular client, and this is year 1 where you're building the client records keeping system. You might spend 45 minutes to an hour keying in the initial run of data required by the software to build the client records keeping system. Now, if this is a subsequent review where you've already got the client records keeping system in place, since let's say you built it last year, then all you're going to do is update the software with the most recent asset values. And so these subsequent reviews are even much easier and quicker. Okay, so let's wrap up step 2. And let's say it took an hour. So we got now say an hour of our time invested. Step 3, print reports. Pretty self-explanatory. What you do here is click print. Okay, so this again is kind of measured by the speed of the click in your printer, of course. And so at this point, in the earlier example that we're working on, we'll be printing, approximately 8 reports or so. So this will go pretty fast. All in all, maybe 5 minutes. So now we're at a total of, say, 65 minutes. Step 4, gather asset documents. Now, this is the step where you gather up the original asset documents you as the agent or advisor set up for your client. And the reason you're going to gather them up is because what you want to do is to combine those original asset documents with the Annual Review Millions reports that you just printed, and then insert all of this into the highly organized client records keeping system, which is the next step. Again, you'll notice that this step 4, is actually grayed out. And again, that's because you only do this activity in year 1. You only do this activity when you're installing Annual Review Millions in your business. And then in subsequent years, all you're doing is updating the client records keeping system with new reports, which in essence has now become your platform for additional client annual reviews. And without giving away all the goods at this point, because after all, I'm selling a system and am not at this point teaching you how to do this. That detail comes in the manual. But what I will say is the high value service component of the system for your client, and what this equates to is you taking what is essentially a mess of paperwork, and through the system you're creating a highly organized client records keeping system for your client that they will absolutely love and that they will absolutely love you for. This act of high value service on your part is what actually finishes the job that you started when it was that you set up the assets. And what this does for you is it installs the platform for your client annual reviews. Because what happens is the client records keeping system is what you update on an annual basis. And thus additional opportunity for more highly suitable new business revenue. Now, let's get back to the asset documents. These are either in your office, and that is if this happens to be a newly issued asset, which in that case, the home office generally sends these documents, to you first, or they're at your client's home. And if that's the case, then the gathering of the asset documents takes place during the actual client annual review, which is a bit more special for your client because they get to see you actually building the client records keeping system, right there before them. Now, you might be thinking, well, what is the client records keeping system? And that's fully detailed in the course. The whole thing is laid out in complete detail. And again, much testing has went into the development of this, over the last 4.5 years. What I will say is I just negotiated an arrangement with one of the world's largest office supply manufacturers. If I mention the name of the company, you would all know the company. If you've been in business for any length of time, you've already purchased their products. This is a global company that is very interested in manufacturing the Annual Review Millions client records keeping system that you'll be delivering to your clients. And this is a great arrangement. And what I will say is the manufacturing quality of the client records keeping system far exceeds my expectations. And as far as manufacturing quality and professionalism is concerned, it's a beautiful product that both you and your clients will be very proud of. Manufactured by a huge office supply company. What you'll have is direct access right from the Annual Review Millions software to a special website where it is you can order as many of these client records keeping systems as your heart desires. And as to the cost, well, it's cheap, dirt cheap, when it is you compare it to the kind of new business revenue that you're now going to be generating. What I will say is that you'll get a review done for around 25 bucks. But forget the cost, because that's nothing when you compare it to the big picture of what you're now going to reap and the personal satisfaction and appreciation from your clients you get as a result of doing this. You're going to find this to be very rewarding, both relationally and financially. All right, so let's move on to the next step. Step 5, assemble records keeping system. You'll notice that this is another grayed out item. And again, the reason being is because step 5 is a function you only perform when it is you're installing the client records keeping system in year 1. Once you've assembled this for your client and put it all together, you don't do it again. So in subsequent years, you're not going to be doing step 5. So this gets even easier in years 2 and up. And this is all pretty self-explanatory. I mean, everything you've done in step 4 and in step 3 is gathered up and quickly assembled into what is now the entire client records keeping system. And that's it. So all in all, in as far as time is concerned, in gathering up the asset documents in step 4 and assembling the client records keeping system in step 5, you might have anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes here. So now we're at an hour and 20 to an hour and 40 minutes or so. But again, do keep in mind that the time I mentioned here is in year 1. In year 2 and up, the grayed out steps you do not do. So that's even less time. So let's move on to step 6. Deliver